All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Ocean Festival and our 2024 NEMO Talk series. This is Talk 5 in the 2024 series, and we're really excited to have Susan Anthony with us today. My name is Suzanne Sanger. I'm the Executive Director of the Sunshine Coast Conservation Association. I'm hosting this talk today from Chiquelp in Gibsons in Atcatsum Howe Sound, the territory of the Squamish people. The SCCA is thrilled to be partnering with Rhizome Up Media, Roguefest, and the Sunshine Coast Arts Council to bring you this year's Sunshine Coast Ocean Festival. This year's events are made possible with funding from the District of Sechelt, the Sunshine Coast Regional District, Sunshine Coast Credit Union, BC government, and the Canadian Ocean Literacy Coalition, as well as many local businesses and individual donors that support the program in a variety of ways. We are so grateful to all of our donors, sincerely, for their support in helping us deliver these events for free to anyone that wishes to join. The SCCA is a charitable nonprofit society with a mission to protect and restore biodiversity on the Sunshine Coast. Our area of interest is over 2 million hectares from Howe Sound to Hamathko in the territories of the Squamish, the Shishap, Tla'amin, Klahoose, and Hamalko First Nations. The SCCA acknowledges and recognizes the rights and title of all nations in their territories. And we are truly and sincerely committed to reconciliation, and deeply grateful to the First Nations peoples who have stewarded the lands and the waters of these territories since time immemorial. And we recognize that reconciliation is a big concept, and we're all sort of learning what that means as we go along. And we really welcome, and encourage everyone to join in that conversation around what does reconciliation mean and how are we advancing it together in a good way. We take great inspiration from the connection, reverence, and respect that Indigenous peoples have always had with the lands and waters and the species in this territory and on Turtle Island, including us as humans. And it is in this spirit of connection between all life and all living beings on our planet that we bring you the Sunshine Coast Ocean Festival. The festival is also inspired by the United Nations World Oceans Day. In 1992, the UN designated June 8th as World Oceans Day to raise awareness in the global public of the impacts of human actions on our oceans, in order to develop and mobilize a worldwide movement of citizens for the ocean. So every year on June 8th, people all around the world gather together to celebrate the oceans, and to talk about the issues facing the marine environment and all the creatures that inhabit it, and work towards raising awareness, supporting advocacy, connecting, and celebrating through festivals like this one. Our 2024 program includes in-person and online screenings of thought-provoking and inspiring films, short films, and feature films, whole range of resources, information and science, and all kinds of great take action items on our website that you can have a look at. As well, we have interactive citizen science and education and advocacy activities, shoreline cleanup, forage fish sampling, and of course our NEMO Talk series, all of which are intended to inspire, enlist, and connect people to take action to protect and restore our oceans. Today, for our final talk in our 2024 series, we're very happy to have Susan Anthony with us to talk about seafloor garbage in the Salish Sea and taking out the trash. Susan is the project manager and researcher with the SeaChange Conservation Society's RESS program, a passionate and curious scientist, natural historian, and conservationist. Susan has a Bachelor of Science from the University of Victoria in biology with a minor in ocean sciences. She studied at the Bamfield Marine Sciences Center, got her master's in science at the Bamfield Marine Sciences Center through the University of Alberta, where she studied the ecology of sea slugs. Suzanne then studied thermal physiology and northern arachnids, gaining an understanding of the less visible effects of climate change on ectotherms. She brings this experience and knowledge to her work with SeaChange on a number of programs. SeaChange and its partners have spent the last decade restoring and conserving nearshore habitat, which includes underwater debris removal. They have navigated regulations and developed effective methods to do this work. However, although there are legions of dedicated shoreline and underwater cleanup crews, there are still big challenges with this dangerous, time-consuming, and costly work. In her talk, Susan will address the issues that come with underwater debris cleanup, potential, and actual solutions that can be used for communities around the Salish Sea. Susan, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Suzanne, for that introduction. And yeah, it's funny because you read it to me. I'm just like, oh, wow, who wrote that? I'm like, oh, I did. And that was a while ago. And I'm glad I'm kind of keeping to that theme. I've been lately writing a lot of reports based upon like what SeaChange and the project that I'm kind of, I guess, managing has accomplished this year. And it's let me kind of reflect on what is possible and what huge hurdles we had. And what I'm going to kind of bring this to everyone who's listening. And please feel free to chat in here. It's going to be more of a free form than a presentation because a lot of it is just sort of like, how do we all navigate this issue of trash in the ocean? I'm happy to share with you my experiences and sort of what I've heard from other people. I can talk to you about how we ourselves deal with it and the challenges with that. But I'm here as not just as someone telling you what we do, but also saying this is how we've developed it that works for us right now. But there's a lot of areas where we just don't know how to proceed. It has a lot to do with legal requirements and just a lot of it's a lot of law kind of thing. So and I hope it's okay. I'm going to start off. Yeah, so please feel free to chime in, and if you have any questions, yeah, but more like if you have comments or like experiences along these things that you can share, and probably the frustrations you have about what can be done. And that's kind of where I'm at a lot of the time. I'm going to start off with a little teaser trailer for a video we're producing, because one thing we've been noticing is we have a lot of skills within us at SeaChange, but one thing we don't have is a great ability to enact policy, enforcement, legal things. So what we thought we could do with our skills is show people, like showcase the issue. And I'll share that with you now if I can. Let's see, my computer's been a little funky lately, so let's see if everything works out just as it should. Now, here, how do I make sure you can hear it? Should that be automatic or?
It has been the last few times we tried. Give it a whirl and see if we can.
Okay.
We're not hearing it.
Okay.
Or I'm not.
Okay, well, I'm unfamiliar with this as much, so I will show you the video of it and sort of narrate it. I don't sound like Nikki. Nikki has such a great voice. You met her. And but I mean, the words are important, but it's really the visuals are what really matter. So I'll just say that this is someone we've worked with for like a couple decades, produced this. And the areas, this is Todd Inlet and the Sandwich Peninsula. And it's just addressing how much of our planet is the ocean, and this is beautiful eelgrass beds, as you know, so you change it all. We love our eelgrass. They're beautiful homes to a lot of a lot of different critters. Yeah, all decorator crab. And it's about how we don't know a lot of the ocean, but it's that beautiful untouched kind of aspect of it that's pretty beautiful. But um, even if we aren't physically there, we have an impact in it. And we know about this with, runoff and all that. But here's an example of what we do on land. And as we say, habits on land impact the ocean floor. And it's something, it's not unfamiliar to see trash at the beach, trash on land, but here we are in underwater. And of course, ghost gear. Ghost gear, I'll definitely be talking about that. But these are all video footage of things that, for one reason or not, we haven't really been able to do anything about in the case when it comes to us right now and our capacity. So thank you for being sharing, looking at that. Let me just grab in my PowerPoint, share, and yeah. Hello again. Yes, I am Susan Anthony. I started to work with SeaChange 1 year ago now, and I'm heading up the Brazilian estuaries of the Salish Sea project. It has sort of twofold purposes, and the first is to learn about resilience and estuaries and what they mean and how they are resilient and what makes them resilient and which are more likely to be resilient given what we know about potential like our future likely climate to be. But another part of that is the restoration, and that's funded through DFO's Aquatic Ecosystem Restoration Fund. And it's allowed us to have funds in which we can make some change in the areas. And this involves, of course, like education and outreach and things like that. But right on the ground, things like debris removal and eelgrass transplants, and also other things that we don't personally do ourselves, but we can like contract out for other people to do that we just don't have the capacity ourselves, but we come together with other people. And that's like shoreline restoration and planting. We've got some big stuff happening in the summer, so we don't impact the wildlife as much as possible. I'm putting my email out here right now because like now I want it to be a discussion, but also I want it to be something that, if anything comes up later on, or somebody who might be interested in like giving any input they have on this topic, I'd love to hear about it. I also want to I realized I didn't edit that one, but yeah, the guy with Salish Sea Marine Industries, just going to say there's a guy there that I need to say thank you to. But I want to talk about all the people who are involved in just my little sphere of influence and interest, particularly Sarah Sturgeon and Nikki Wright, who are the founders of SeaChange, and Sarah, who has since passed. She was on the ground really doing the diving. So you'll see a lot of pictures of her from previous works. Jamie Smith, Justin Glenn, and Vicky, Justin and Joshua and Landon are all people who are out. So you'll see their faces on a lot of these pictures because they're out actually doing the work. And Sarah's our executive director. Also have a lot of collaborations with people who are doing great things, and we are learning a lot from them. John Rowe and Eric Daly are big dead boats peoples. Jerry Thompson as well has been involved with more policy things, and I'm excited to talk about that. The Coastal Restoration Society, a whole bunch of other organizations I can't even start, but these are the ones that have just been in my recent sphere. Funding from DFO and also the Canada Coast Guard and Transport Canada are I've been in communication with them, let's say. Um, and yeah, these are just some examples of recent things we found under the water and what they can mean and why it's a sometimes more visible problem than you think. But here's some great examples of just general trash. So we feel like there's three categories of stuff that's left on the seafloor. And I always think of them as the stuff that was just kind of a gray area, ghost gear, and abandoned vessels or dead boats, as they call them. Because legally, I getting the sense that those are definitely more like ghost gear. And I'll talk about later. And dead boats have more of a legal framework and kind of importance, whereas just trash, I'm just trying to figure out things that people by accident or on purpose, things that have been left on the seafloor. Is that abandoned because they can't access it and get it? Or is it just trash? That's always a question when we're underwater, that the people who are doing the diving actually have to make that call. A lot of the things are like up in the top left, we have a mooring block, also known as a bucket filled with cement. We have an engine, I think, down there, and a bathtub, I believe, on the right. Now, this is just one of those things where you guys can kind of like, anyone want to shout out something that they have known people to use as a mooring block? Because there's great stories. I mean, just a bucket of rocks has been very common. But there are the more interesting ones, like an engine. What was it? One person actually, not just one, but multiple radiators, those like iron radiators. Just tie a rope, toss it over, you got your mooring block. Um, and it's hard to kind of, that's one of the common, pieces of trash. We also have bits of cars and boats. Not sure how they get in the water. A lot of times it's neglect. I mean, if you think about it, you're working on your boat and something falls overboard, you're not going to hire a diver to go collect it, right? So we find some interesting things. I personally like the old time sort of CB radio there and a drill. Also, but things just kind of end up littering the ground. Wires, cables, lots of tires. They're probably used as bumpers, floats, and lots of sails. Clothing we found a lot of. So I'm guessing, you hang your clothes to dry, they fly away. But there's just a lot of things that are like TVs and toilets and things like that that end up down there because it's gone. I believe on the left is a deep freezer. I believe that's what it is, and that might be attached to a mooring. I'm not quite sure. And then on the right is just an example of the stuff we pull up. Oh, there's the toilet. Nice. Now, when it comes to trash, I've been trying to find like a way to decide like our like cover our butts, as it were, if we collect trash. Because every time we collect trash, people say things like, "Oh, did you see my something? I dropped it." And I'm just like, what do you at that point, like, what do you do? Do you allow people to come in and search through stuff? Because sometimes it's what do you do with it? Do you allow people to come take a look at the stuff, or do you only grab the things that are just destroyed beyond use, which is kind of more in the realm that we do, is like no one can use this again, so it is trash. Even so we are also dealing with the whole idea of like salvage, like, oh, salvage laws, if it's in the sea, it's free to take. It's not like that. I always thought it was, and it isn't. But this is a place it'd be really cool to hear anyone else's interpretation of it. I know a lot of people around are like former lawyers and things like that, and they have an idea. I've definitely, we're kind of working on the effect of also whose property is the seafloor. We often, when we do our debris removal, we start off by connecting with, First Nations whose territory it is. So that's kind of actually usually we start talking to First Nations in general, and any of them have like an issue they think they have, then we'll come and kind of assess it for them. And so they have like something off their plate. Uh, but then, do you contact who do you contact and say, I'd like to collect garbage? People are like, we have to deal with bigger problems than that. So we've kind of worked on the fact that if we're going to do something, we're collecting trash from the seafloor. It's the same as if you're going for a walk in the park, like public land, public whatever, and you see trash, like a piece of garbage, you can pick it up and put it in the garbage. Like you can do that. Like it's, you're doing what you think is best for them. But that's not that's just for junk stuff that you're not quite sure how to categorize. That has nothing to do with like ghost gear. So ghost gear is another thing, and we can all sort of agree that this is a huge problem. I'm very thankful for was it Surfrider and law students at University of Victoria that did an amazing document called Ghost Gear Recommendations for a Comprehensive Canadian Legal Scheme. And they like to say that was it 30% up to 30% of harvestable fish are caught in ghost gear. The estimated that between 600,000 and 800,000 metric tons of ghost gear enter the oceans annually. And they say 7 times the weight of the CN Tower. So I guess that's our new, way we determine things. And that it makes up of 70% up to 70% of the ocean's macroplastics by weight. So and it breaks down and becomes microplastics. And as you know, we're finding microplastics in salmon that we consume and within ourselves then. I think that I also have, I wanted to say that there's a great the percentage. So anywhere there was a study in 2020, and they found that most of the trash collected was about 56% was ghost gear, but that can actually go up to 70-80% depending on location. This is an amazing document. I highly recommend skimming through it, but from my research and from this, what I really gathered is Canada doesn't really have much. It's very lagging behind everyone else. There has been the ghost gear, so I have my notes in PowerPoint, but it's the ghost gear initiative that the UN has put forth. And there's been a lot of talk about ocean plastic, particularly by the Prime Minister, but never really stating ghost gear as it's the big problem that it is. And ghost gear, it's I think I said it before, it's also known in the technical terms, the legal government terms, it is the abandoned, lost, or otherwise discarded fishing gear. And I don't know about you, but that is pretty rough definition. Even though they try to cover everything, I kind of have an issue with if I find ghost gear and someone says, that's mine, you stole it and threw it away. Like, is something, if you lose something, is it still yours? Right? So being something that's lost, it's abandoned, you believe that it is not returned. It is left and discarded. Get it? But lost, I have a hard time with, because most times when we go out looking in the ocean, people will say, have you found my crab trap? I lost it. And we return it to people. We don't turn around and sell it. We don't, I know some people will fix them and give them away. And I really agree with those, but then it just becomes that issue of ownership of something that has been lost. And because it's a lot of these things we'll talk about when it's in the ocean, it's totally different, because it's not, someone can't just come and pick it and bring it home. It's underwater. It's a process to get that out. But the other thing that ghost gear causes is what's ghost fishing. I think that a lot of people are very familiar with this. Not the term necessarily, but the fact that you have ghost gear, it's abandoned, but it just keeps killing. So ghost fishing, which means it kills something and attracts other things and it kills them. And affects everything. So we did a just like a day or two ghost gear removal in Cadbro Bay, which is just sort of between Oak Bay and Saanich on the Saanich Peninsula. It's a very popular place to boat and I guess crab, but we collected a bunch of crab nets, and I'll see if this one plays well enough. Can you hear that one? Anyway, that was Joshua, and he's pulling up this net, and it's just chock-a-block of crabs that otherwise would have died just in that net for no reason. They found one trap that had 18 like dead crabs in it. And obviously when you crab, you bring out your net, you can measure them. Gravids and females, you can put them back. They're too small, you can put them back. But in this case, it's indiscriminate. And it just carries on over and over until someone else picks up someone's mess. Oh, there we go. So in 2019, this thing called the Ghost Gear Fund was implemented, which is you can apply for funding through the Canadian government. Now, it lasted till 2023, and I have not seen any evidence of it being carried forth. But they're pretty proud of what they did, such as they have aquaculture trips, the gear removal. They've kind of collected a lot of stuff. So some of them involving the Coast Guard. Here's some traps they have, like these big seine and purse nets are giant killers of the sea. And like we said, anything to do with that has plastic on it, like most of the rope becomes microplastics eventually after it's entangled and killed things. And we've also seen a lot of videos and stuff of marine animals being trapped in these things, and birds. This is a part of the fund they had is actually a part of it is for developing new technologies to help with ghost gear removal. Here's the other issue with it is things that are underwater, it's harder to get at. How do you access it? Here's someone in this like futuristic scuba suit. And yeah, it's an evolved process. How do you find it? How do you capture it? And all that. Now, what you're supposed to do when you have trap is you're supposed to have it properly attached to a mooring buoy, and the mooring buoy is what has to have all like a particular size, particular, pen color and everything very regular, and attach it to the trap. But there's no official requirement to have the trap itself labeled with you. So when someone loses a trap, like their buoy comes off, what do? Well, a lot of people just kind of, all right, get another one. You're supposed to declare it. And that is a lot of process, a lot of onus on the person who lost the trap. It's not so you can get it back. It's that so people know that it's there. So there has been some compliance to it, which is nice. But a number of lost gear reports. So we have over the Pacific 106 for a 3-year period, 106 reports of lost gear. And that's kind of, we've probably collected that many in just 2 days. It's a rather sad situation. But yeah, the point was for people to declare it. I still can't figure out if there's a legal repercussion for losing this. You're not supposed to, is all it says, but I don't know if there's fines associated with it. It's very clear about fines for littering on land. But again, it's down to enforcement, and it's down to like, how do you check? So when we pull up traps, we, free the animals that we can, and we look for any identifying features to it, because that would be pretty useful. Because if someone wants it back, they can have it back, but also, where does it come from? They can drift far away. Now, now we're going on to the next category of things, and that's the dead boats. and abandoned vessels or derelict ships or wrecks or who knows what to call them. And it is a huge problem in the beautiful areas that you would be like, why is this an area? So I think on the left are both Oak Bay, and then on, oh no, these are all Cadbro Bay, I'm sorry. Boats that are half submerged, boats that are completely submerged and kind of we almost hit and is covered with algae, so it's really hard to see it. Boats washed up on the shore all the time, and this is just around Victoria itself. What happens? What do you do? Like, we all see these things happening all the time. We have a lot of people who live right there and are staring at this boat like, what do I do with it? These are heavy. They are kind of belong to somebody. Do they belong to someone at this point? And that is actually the biggest quagmire I've come to. So here's what I found when I investigated, and some people have helped navigate and told me these things, but also I see that online, the Government of Canada from the Ocean Protections Plan say you contact the Coast Guard, and there's some contacts. If you see a boat that has appeared to be abandoned, it poses a risk to the environment, a worn down state, if you and those kinds of things. So like the pictures I was showing you. So you contact the Canadian Coast Guard, which kind of seems like they don't really have more important things to do, but that's the other thing. If you want to move it, like they said, don't touch it. And then in only if it's a navigational hazard does it go to Transport Canada. And I always have a question about navigational how, and then it becomes a lot of it is you call about it and they give you a number and then you just wait. And the boat just sits on the shore. The boat just sits and they'll be there for a long time. The ones on shore, people tend to move faster and easier, but once they're underwater, people are like that back burner. And then it becomes an interesting legal situation. So I also would like to say I got a targeted ad, when you're on your social media and all those things. I got an ad for this right after I got into it. I'm like, oh, no kidding. But this is something else. Now they say this ad says contact Transport Canada if you see a abandoned boat. Again, they've got a lot of stuff going on. I have some contacts in there, and they're just like, we have to deal with giant shipping containers that are like big shipping vessel, like a small boat is not in our interest. So, wrecked, abandoned, or hazardous vessels program information. This is where we start going into acts and law and all of this. So it is, what do you do? So you're supposed to go to the Coast Guard because they assess if it's a problem. And I like this, when your problem vessels reported to the Canada Coast Guard, it is assessed for its level of risk, reported to partners, and added to the national inventory. Cool. Done. Problem's gone. I'm just kind of like, and then what? And then what? I have it from good authority that it can cost the Coast Guard, because of everything involved, to about like over like $100,000 to remove a boat from the water. And that's not including just time involved. So I think that can understand why maybe they'd be like, I think we need to use our money elsewhere. Now, there is a small craft harbors abandoned and wrecked vessels removal program. And of course, luckily, the application is only like 13 pages long or something like that. It is meant to be for people like harbor authorities, not-for-profits, like personal, like community groups, all that stuff. In fact, I was instructed to go through this method. and you could be eligible for some funding. So, well, yeah, let's talk about the inventory of wrecked and abandoned hazardous vessels. You go to their website and it tells you exactly where they are, their name and everything like that. And there are 1,489 currently registered in Canada. I gotta say that's an understatement because I found 7 in Oak Bay and it had been cleared off 5 years ago. So just I think it's an underestimation. It also, like I said, that's kind of where it stops. Like, okay, then what? What happens to it then? So here's what you have to do is you have to obtain legal possession of a wrecked, abandoned boat. So this is the instructions that I've had to read through and try to figure out where we fit into it. So you have, if the owner's willing to transfer possession to you, then you have to do an owner consent. So you don't get, you can get possession of it, but you don't have ownership of it. Very different things. Of course, every person can navigate this super easily. If you look down on the bottom of the left-hand side, it says the owner is unknown and the vessel is on land. So you go to Transport Canada, try to find the person, registry, all the databases, all that kind of stuff. Then you have to publish a 31-day public notice indicating your intent to seek legal possession of the vessel in order to remove and dispose of it. So this is what I've gathered is, and you have to have proof that you did this. I think you're supposed to put it in the newspaper, get out an ad for a month to say, I want to do that, and contact a lawyer. That's a lot of fun for people to want to do. That's if you have the money to dispose of this yourself anyway. Now, if it's in water, it's a different thing. You contact Transport Canada and advise you. And this is where Transport Canada shared with me, and I hope I have it here. Oh, yes. After consulting, there was a sailboat in Oak Bay that was half out of the water and half in the water, and it was in an eelgrass bed. Now, with that and the other boats there, we found a contractor and we said, okay, we can get permission. We have the funds left over to be able to remove all of these in like a day. And we had the funds and everything. But these wrecked, dilapidated boats that have been in the water for years are legally the possession of somebody else, even though they're sitting on the seafloor. So this is in the background, some beautiful photos of these lovely things that people want to keep. And the response I got from Transport Canada, which was after discussing, we have to, with my colleagues, we have to complete a S38 applicant form to take possession to the Transport Canada website. And then with details of the vessel, coordinates, current status, everything, and our intentions. Then they'll review it and they'll have to see if they're already working on it, fair enough. And then determine if it falls within their mandate of navigational hazard. And then you have to give the notice. Then we can do it on our own expense. So here's the interesting thing. When you dispose of something like a boat, you cannot just take it to the landfill and dump it. If something is covered in potentially life, like algae and stuff like that, you have to have a special, what is it called? Like you have to make an appointment for them to review it at the landfill. And this is, of course, given that you live near a landfill. I've got a lot of experience of dealing with abandoned boats in Lund. And this was that before you could dispose it, you actually have to obviously give notice, but you also have to have it tested. You have to hire out a company that tests the boat for asbestos and leaking lead. Now, if there's asbestos, then you have to do remediation process, all on your own dime. If there's leaking lead, you cannot dispose of it in British Columbia. So this was conversation with this one fellow who said they had a point where they were disposing of a boat and it had leaking lead. It was a very old boat. It had to be shipped to Alberta to be disposed. Now, that's kind of a ridiculous thing they have to go through for someone else's issue. So here is the request for authorization to take possession of an abandoned or wrecked vessel. So it's a legal document where you have to legally take possession of something. So once you've taken legal possession of it, then you have to, that's when that it's your responsibility to dispose of it. So it's a lot for someone to take on. It's a lot for an organization to take on, and lawyers can be involved. Here's something, this boat was washed up on shore. It even had a notice on it and everything. And we were like, well, now what? The notice was 30 days ago. It's sitting on the shore. We actually had someone voluntarily, one of our staff members happened to see it and voluntarily tied it to a tree so it wouldn't get washed away. And even then, it was emails back and forth about who does who, what, where. And we're like, we can pick it up. We have a boat trailer. We can just pick it up, but we can't take legal responsibility for it because there's a whole process for it. So it stayed there. As far as I know, it's still there. I think I can share this because this is a quote from somebody, but basically they said there's no magic bullet. Transport Canada is the last agency. You have to report it to the Coast Guard abandoned boats, get a file number, send pictures to shorten the investigation. If you process through Transport Canada after the Coast Guard, then it can be anywhere from 6 months or more. If you're looking for salvage, so I started looking up salvage laws, it's also a huge delay. And this is why a lot of organizations will not touch boats because of the legal repercussions, because ownership can be claimed to it. So it could be completely fallen apart, trashed with no registration or anything, but you can't touch it. So what do we do? Well, when it comes to boats, so I just have a little bit of time. I'll tell you our process of debris removal if you're interested, but I can also open it up for more of a discussion. But what we tend to do is with the divers, they tend to take, I don't want to say this, I don't want to use the HAZARDOUS word because I don't want to claim that we're working with materials that are of that, because that's a whole other work safe issue. But we take things that could pose risk to wildlife, and that's batteries, that's engines, that's things that have fallen off the boat already. We collect that because that is no longer a boat or on the boat. But it is a legal headache, and we are worried that one day we're going to do something, and we get threats from people saying that we took something of theirs, and whether or not we did, it doesn't matter because there's no real regulation in the ocean. It's a conundrum, and this is for people who've been doing this for decades, like 30 years. They're just like, there's no good way to do it, and most people don't want to assume the risk, and I get it. I really do. I just want to see. Yeah, I'm seeing that people are talking more, and I really love to hear more about that. So if people are okay, can I read what you're saying? Just I hope so.
Yeah, I was just gonna pull things out and sort of
Yeah,
pop it in the chat for you. I'm almost done.
yeah,
One
yeah.
second. So I'm gonna put it in comments by who posted it along. I've been pulling it out along the way, but just give me a
Oh,
second.
good. Yeah, then I will
And then you can
I can be honest, I don't have a lot of answers. I'll just quickly run through just our process of debris cleanup, which is we side scan and look for anomalies. We pinpoint them on map. We'll go out with divers and baskets and tie a little buoy to the basket, and the arrows are pointing to a whole bunch of buoys in an area. And sometimes tie a buoy directly to an item, and such as this mast. We collect a lot of masts for some reason. We come along with the collective effort, which is our ship, our pontoon that has a little crane on it. We pull everything, put them into bags, dump them into a bin. There's a collective effort with a nice mast in it, and our bin, bag of bottles, collective effort again. And I have some great footage and video of all the crazy big stuff we have. And then a little movie of just a montage of debris being cleaned up by the divers. So they have to collect stuff and not disturb too much while they're doing it. I know that they have had to go back for some items. I know we have some special equipment now, like we have like an underwater drill. You can actually drill into something to tie it up to be able to hoist it. These are commercial divers. I won't tell you what the legal issues are for hiring commercial divers and workers' comp and insurance. Everything underwater is hard to do. And then we have a dive boat. We have this pontoon boat. We have to rent an excavator to move things to a dumpster. The dumpster has to be dove. We have to go to landfill. There's so many steps in the process just to collect things that fall off people's boats. The other thing I wanted to share with you is I'm not involved, or SeaChange is not involved with this, but it has been like the conversation starting, and a couple people I know are starting a kind of a pilot project. It's been initiated in Broad Inland, I believe, already, which is a way to ensure that more people who are moored have the legally required insurance and registration on their boats. And so that's the thing, is it's not new rules. It's the insurance is meant for your boat gets damaged or destroyed and it's sunk. The cost is not onto not-for-profits. The cost isn't onto an individual who has to apply for these super easy to read applications for funds and claiming ownership and all of these processes. And then they don't even know at that point if they're going to be in legal hot water. So it's a lot of people don't touch those things, and that's why a lot of them are just left. And yeah, I'm going to stop there because I love that there's people talking. And I'm sorry I didn't realize that that was you. I thought it was still Suzanne, just like, oh, Susan mentioned this. I'll just show you a link to it. But
No, there's a whole bunch of questions and comments. So
awesome.
I sort of grabbed people's questions and comments. So you'll see the first for me that is Surama, and then going down, and then there are a bunch more after that. And so I'm going to take the opportunity to say, as you were talking, Susan, one of the things that was happening for me is I was thinking about the conversation we're having around the dock management plan and garbage. And replacing docks and all the stuff that just breaks up in the styrofoam and lands everywhere. And this recognition that the seafloor is provincial jurisdiction with, First Nations. It's First Nations and provincial jurisdiction. One of the things we've been talking about in that conversation is the need for boat haul outs. So people can get their boats out of the water, not floating all winter and facing the dangers and, all the rest of it. And so, a boat haul out facility, as well as environmentally sound ship breaking facilities. And it occurs to me that if a nonprofit like SeaChange could handle all that stuff that you're handling about, pulling the garbage off the seafloor and just delivering it to a facility that would have to deal with all the bureaucracy of the stuff, that might be a conversation we could have with the BC government.
It really comes down to the fact that it is a problem for a not-for-profit to put on that kind of risk legally.
Right.
And that's why it's kind of a weird thing. Like, this is an abandoned boat on the seafloor. It's been there for a couple of years. Like, why am I going to be worried about getting into legal hot water or sued, or why do I need a lawyer? Or why do we need a lawyer to do this? So And I kind of glanced at some of the comments about how other people have handled these things, and that's a really good question. And that's why I mean, personally, I went into sciences and biology, but a lot of the things that I wanted to do with my degree is to provide evidence for policy change, because like, this really highlights just how it's not working. The onus is on individuals, not-for-profits, community groups, and other places are doing it better. Like I said, Canada's lagging in the ghost gear thing. They really are not making it a priority compared to like the whole general like global ghost gear initiative. So, which is really great to listen that is talked about, but just sad that Canada isn't in it. And yeah, there is a much better way for it to be done. We just aren't.
Yeah. Do you want me to read some of the questions
Oh,
out?
I love to. Again, I don't think I have answers, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, okay, I can read them out. So Sarama has a few, and I'm going to try and put
Mhm.
together. So salvage fees could be applied to help fund these processes. It's pretty clear that the process is completely ridiculous, and lawmakers must step up to deal with this in a streamlined way without all the onerous legalese.
Mhm.
Yeah. Robin was commenting there are many boats being abandoned at the former Mosquito Creek Marina. So yeah, that's happening now. And there's some questionable boats anchored in Gibson's Harbor as well. And I have this experience I lived on the waterfront for quite a few years, and we used to, we'd see the boats coming in or going by and get the pole and push them off the shore to keep them from, grounding up on the shore. Like, it's really common here. And we do sort of a community effort. When somebody sees a boat
Mhm.
floating, the phones start ringing to the harbor authority and to the guys down with the gear. And yeah, it's weird that it ends up being like, you know, calling the guy with the crane who
Yeah.
has, it's just such a strange thing. Okay, so
And before I go on, I do want to just comment on Denise, and that's a really good point. I tend to not. I kind of glanced over all the stuff that we did because I didn't want to be like, hey, look at all this stuff and all the people doing all the great stuff, because there is government funding for people to do what we're doing. So because of government, the issue, and the government recognizes these issues of, and be part of restoration, the funds are there now, like for us and for other people, to at least do what we do. And that we've collected tons in the last year. We collected over 5 tons of trash just locally about stuff. Transport Canada, I don't know why, but for some reason, after I got into this issue with them, next thing I know, all the boats out of Oak Bay were taken out, including the one in the eelgrass bed, and we were able to pick up the rest of it and transplant in there. So within 3 months, Oak Bay went from 7 dead boats and including a big scarring in the eelgrass bed to planted eelgrass and garbage collected. And that was all funds from the government to do, and the government actually doing it. So they're also thinking about, like I said, this next step is you are legally required to have insurance for your boat falling, like for your boat, if anything happens to it. So it's been enacted other places, and now other municipalities are taking it on, where you have to show sort of evidence of that insurance if you want to moor your boat. And for that reason, just like you show evidence you have insurance on your car, same reason. So there are things in place, but it is, in a lot of cases, like there's the policy side, which is happening. These things are changing. The ghost gear, I know there's a lot of things that are doing globally, and I think that Canada will adopt these things. They're just we tend to be a little bit behind sometimes, but I have high expectations that this, because it's been so well studied, and that document about what we should do was from the law students from UVic, was only just recently released. It was like 6 months ago, but there's time to act on it and follow other people's great examples. So
yeah, we've worked
I'll
quite a bit
say
with the UVic Environmental Law Center, and they're just
great.
fabulous. And, I mean,
Mhm.
that's a follow-up conversation we have about like, you know, what does this report that they just released address? And then is there a next step to it, right?
Mhm.
To really get down into the nitty-gritty of how to deal with the bureaucracy of the law. Leanne,
And that there's great people involved with it, and that's the uplifting thing is people are working on it, so we're
yeah,
not giving up.
yeah. Leanne was mentioning in the chat that Washington State has extensive licensing program for
Mhm.
captains and owners. It's similar to the way we handle car ownership and driving. And it makes it
Mhm.
more expensive to pay annually for the boat license, but the funds raised are dedicated to cleaning up. She's saying we should do the same.
Yeah, I mean, and you are required to have these things. It's just you have to check for it, right? Yeah, but definitely a better program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and marine mooring just costly if you just anchor. Um, it's there's a lot of ways in which the solution can be had, and I think that highlighting the problem a bit and picking it up, where we're in a position where we decided not to do a cleanup somewhere until we saw that there was going to be a stop of the input, and once that's sort of and that's sort of in place. So this is an area nearby in Cairo Bay that the input of trash and debris and boats is just so much. Like if you collect it, it's just you got just trying to fill up a bucket with a hole in the bottom. But there's actually things in place now for that are going to be in place where there's more regulation for people who want to anchor there. So then it's like, yes, more likely to have the funds to clean up what's there, that you're going to stop the leak.
I have a question. It might be naive, but I'm not a boat owner, but I wonder, is it possible that if you when you get if there were an education component to getting your boat license beyond just being an operator and the basics of
Mm.
safety and how you need to, manage yourself and handle those aspects of it, but also, this is what it looks like when you drop your drill and all those cables and it's the cumulative piling up of junk. Maybe there's an opportunity to educate people, because if you're not down there, you don't see it, you don't necessarily think.
Mhm.
You might be like, oh, I dropped a cable, oh, it's not a big deal, it's a big ocean. And this is kind of part of what
Yeah.
Ocean Festival is about, is trying to shift the consciousness of people who don't see what's underwater. I wonder about we posted or we actually worked with other nonprofits and DFO to put up signage at the marinas around glass sponges and glass sponge reefs, so that people could know where those were. So don't drop your anchor, don't drop your crab trap in the where you're going to bust up the glass sponges. Is
Yeah.
there, are there programs like that?
So we are involved with the transboundary. So this is in the Puget Sound, sort of Salish Sea, Washington area, and up here in BC, about this voluntary no anchor zone. So we've put up those buoys everywhere, but that's the thing is, there's just more stuff in the ocean. It's I kind of was trying to figure out, am I legally allowed to do this? So I'm like, okay, we've put them in. They're very expensive because obviously we want to do it more ecologically sound, where we'd have the midline buoy. So the line doesn't drag on the ground. There's a buoy midway up to keep it off the bottom. And also like, where do you attach? Like, where do you put them? And I think what's really been very cool is a lot of people, I think we've got a lot of boaters here, use Navionics as an app for boating. And previously, I think it was a NOAA thing, or a Department of Defense or something in the States. And but that something has changed. So this was in a meeting I was at, and I didn't quite understand it because I'm still don't understand a lot of legal stuff. But now they're in talks to add ecologically sensitive areas to the as a layer, and that is a next huge step forward, is to have that available sort of in your face rather than having to search it. So if you're boating around and you see, oh, don't anchor there because there's like a cable under the water. Oh, there's also a glass sponge reef there. Okay, well, I'll just go a little bit over here. Like most people, like from what I've gathered, you have the one or two persons who everyone thinks about who doesn't care. But most people, there's a lot of boaters out there. Most people don't want to. It's just, how do you know, right?
There are so many great comments in the chat, and it's already,
Yeah.
1:05.
Oh,
So
sorry.
to a lot. No. I mean, I think, if you're happy to stay, we're happy to stay too. I just wanted to sort of flag that it's a little bit after one. One of the things that I'll get to the next comment, but one of the things that I was thinking about, legal possession equals legal responsibility. And I was thinking, as you were talking about the different aspects of it, like, if maybe there's a way to influence policy such that if you lose something and you don't report it, there's the answer to the question of who owns it. The only way you can still own it is if you report it. So I think a lot of
Yeah.
people report because they don't want to have their name on their garbage, right? When they don't want to deal with it. So that
Yeah.
might a
Well,
simple.
I assume that if your boat sank and you're not doing anything about it, that and it's growing, things are growing on it, you're not getting it back.
Yeah.
But I do Saram, I really feel like you and I should chat another time because absolutely that's the thing, is the input. That's an issue with technologies involved in different kinds of materials used for ghost gear. So there's a lot of research into the technology to prevent ghost gear in the first place. When we talk about plastics in general, that was the weird thing, is you look in the ocean plastic, for a lot of the collections I have, it's actually predominantly or mostly ghost gear rather than just the trash that we always think about that we use on land. So huge issue immediately on land and the ocean is reduce our use of single-use plastic and all that stuff. But ghost gear is actually making up a huge portion of it.
Another good comment from Aaron too.
Yeah.
He's wondering about could other larger projects like the ones he's described then strategically initiate awareness elsewhere?
Well, strategic awareness is yeah, that's actually a big job. It's how do you reach people and show them the impacts of things? And that's part of what we like to do, education, like you said. But I think that's yeah, it's hard because we're talking about ghost gear and we're talking about oftentimes big business, and that's just a different alleyway. Like I talk about ghost gear as like one crab trap, but some things we can handle like that. And I think people are um, generally good, but when you deal with businesses, that's a little more tricky. But the thing is, um, yeah, with boats, sometimes a lot of it is there's a financial blockage, and like every single step required to, like, if your boat sinks is a barrier for somebody in some way. A lot of the stuff required internet, a lot of it required the understanding of how to read some of these things that I couldn't. And yeah, just like I said, there's no way in which a boat usually can be tracked back to a person. I mean, yes, like I said, you can claim it after someone does it, but yeah, basically it's just a lot of times it's not that many people causing a lot of the problem, I guess I should say. And especially it's something I found locally. So awareness is essential, but they need some meat behind it too. And that's why we want to do sort of these education things in order to, and the videos, is to have some, like, and working with people who have ideas in place on how to regulate these things a bit more and to take the onus off of for profits working on donations or grants to pick up essentially like $100,000 worth of trash from one person, and that's a lot. But there's something we also kind of come up on is the whole situation of mental health and housing crisis issues, and I know especially around in Victoria that's a big deal, and you have to be understanding of that as well. And so when you navigate things, you have to definitely take those kinds of things into account.
Yeah, I think this is like everything's connected and it's a huge conversation. And I feel like what I'm seeing, there's a lot of interest in the chat actually, and a lot of ideas, sort of like
Yeah.
I've done this and could we do that? And so maybe what I would like to do is make the invitation that, if you, maybe we should, have a follow-up conversation. And really sort of put our minds to ways that we can support the work that you're doing, Susan. If we have, like, I totally go into the government policy and regulatory thought process of like how to fix these things and who we help and or bring in to help and engage with us. And as you can see, Sarama's a diver and he's down there all the time. He sees it.
He sees, and that's the thing is when you see it, like also like I was just saying, hazardous materials, leaking batteries. Technically, you're not supposed to touch that if you're a commercial diver. And that's the sad part, because those are the things you want out of there. But you'd have to deal with hazardous materials like personal protection equipment. You have extra regulations. You have all these things like there's a lot of barriers.
Yeah.
And but we need to cut that down when it comes to like for the outcome being more essential than the steps within it. But I think that's I'm very hopeful for other people having it. I'm just showing you that where we've kind of unraveled a bit of a mystery and tried to find our way through it, and why we haven't followed up on some things versus others, but we are able to do a lot of great things. And organizations like us, the Coastal Restoration Society, they do fantastic stuff, and some great people. All the dead boat societies really appreciate the work they do. They're all grant funded, donations, all that stuff. So
yes, it's amazing. Just watch, some of the pictures and the video that you were showing of the things that you're pulling up off the seafloor, and we've had a talk last year from the Dead Boats Removal Society on the island too. And is it
John Rowe?
John Rowe, yeah, John Rowe, amazing.
Yeah,
so,
he's been a good mentor.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it is this huge problem, but there's also so many people like yourself and all the folks that you listed on your original slide, that are working on it. And so if there's, we're definitely going to follow up with you after this, and we'll hook you up with some of the folks in the room. And it's almost 15:15, so we're
I'm so sorry. Is it possible to get a copy of all the chat comments and stuff?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, perfect.
And we'll
look up the I think I gotta stop sharing, I'm sorry. I was going to pull up the name of the document from the UVic students, if that's of interest.
Yes.
I think it is. Pardon me.
I think too, we're gonna follow up and get like a list of resources from you, Susan.
Oh yeah, I've a lot of websites.
Put them up.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry, I might have a delay. We'll put them up on our website and our Take Action page so that people can check that out. And also at the you showed those graphics, those OPP graphics at the beginning. There were like educational information for boaters. Anyway, we'll follow up.
The flow chart.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share whatever I have. I'm very happy to.
Okay, and thank you. I mean, it's really inspiring, and it is frustrating, the convolutions, but it is really it's inspiring to know that you guys are pulling it apart and trying to figure it out and work on this stuff, and all the good work that you're doing is really like, it's pretty amazing. And that's so just to wind up, this is why we do these talks, right? Is to bring people into these conversations so that we can learn about not just the headaches, but all the good work and ways that we can support and collaborate.
And there's a lot of recommendations on how things can go. and we'll do it.
Right. Okay, thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you.
I just want to sort of do a little shout out at the end, and remind folks that we have lots of aspects of the Ocean Festival program, including all the virtual pieces, some beautiful films, and tomorrow we've got live events for World Oceans Day in Seashell. We've got a celebratory event from noon till 4 p.m. We're having a barbecue and raffle and all kinds of booths with marine focused groups and activities. It's going to be really fun. And then in the evening, doors open at 6:30 at the Seashell Arts Center, and we're doing a screening of the film, the documentary film Deep Rising. Also, what else? Oh, raffle tickets. We had some really great prizes, and tomorrow we'll be drawing prizes at the live event, at the celebration, and at the end at the film. Yeah, and obviously there's all kinds of information on our Sunshine Coast Ocean Festival website. If you want more information about anything. It's too bad you're not on the coast, Susan, because it would be fun to hang out with you at our festival. Maybe next year we can plan for you to join us. You're muted. You're muted.
We've got a lot of stuff going on in down South Island too, I will say, in Victoria. So
very cool.
But maybe one year I'd love to come up and visit, and I'd just like to come anyway.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, oh, sorry. And so just as this is our last NEMO talk, I just want to do one sort of last shout out to our sponsors, the District of Seashell, the Regional District Credit Union, BC Government, and Canadian Ocean Literacy Coalition for funding the program. And I really do also just want to, you know, put my hands up to our team at the SCCA who've developed this amazing and really jam-packed program for this year, and shepherded it all through Billy Carroll and Rhizome Up Media, and also our fabulous Sophie Cheshire and Sophia Carroll have been amazing helping us put this all together and deliver it. As well, Sully Messner with Rogue Fest is the coordinator for our event tomorrow, and so hands up to Sully too. So thanks, folks. We've had a wonderful NEMO Talk series, lots of follow-up, lots of action that we can all get engaged in. Anybody who's showed up to these events, please go check out the Take Action page on our website and see where you can fit in. Thank you. Hi, Sarama. Nice to see your face.